Well, hello everyone. Hello everyone. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. If you were planning to be at Collaborate, Work, and Meet Remotely, part of the Grow with Google series with Fort Worth Public Library, you are in the right place. So we are going to give everyone just a chance to log in before I officially get started. So kind of get comfortable with your screen. One of the things that we'll do today is we'll take questions. And so at the bottom of your screen, as you're getting comfortable with it, you will see that there's a part that says Q&A, and that's where you can go ahead and type in your questions. And let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Luce Early with Fort Worth Public Library. You are here to participate in Collaborate, Work, and Meet Remotely as part of the Grow with Google series. And I have my wonderful colleague, Alexis Carter, here with me. And she is supporting us because she is keeping up with the question and answer section. So she's keeping an eye out for those questions that you type into that question and answer section that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. It says Q&A, okay? That's one of the tools you can use to communicate your questions to us. So today is the fourth in a series of workshop webinars that we've been doing. And let me just do a little recap. We did first use YouTube to grow your business. Then the second workshop was digital skills for everyday tasks. And the third workshop, that was last Wednesday at 4 p.m., that third workshop was communicate with calendar and Gmail. And that calendar would be Google Calendar. And today, the workshop that we're doing today is Collaborate, Work, and Meet Remotely. Now, everyone that registered for this series earlier today, check your email inboxes, because earlier today, I sent the handouts from last week, the handout from last week's workshop, the Communicate with Calendar and Gmail, and I also sent, inside of that same email, I sent the direct access links to the recordings. So for each of those 3 workshops that have been completed, there's a corresponding recording of the workshop. So you can watch those workshops again if you participated, or you can see them for the first time. Now, I provided the direct access link within the email that I sent you, but also you should know that those are on the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. Okay, so you have the link inside the email for each one of those video recordings for these workshops, but you also need to keep in mind that that's part of the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. So that one from today's workshop will be available at a later date, but in the same fashion. It will be posted later to the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. Okay. Also, a little bit after today's workshop, you will also get the handouts for today. And that's important to know. It's important to know because the handout is really every single slide I place up on the screen. So although you can take notes, you don't have to memorize every single thing I share with you, because following the workshop within the next day or so, you will get that email from me, Luce Early, at fortworthtexas.gov. You're going to get this email with the attached handout. Okay? So we're going to get started. So today's focus, the focus for today is going to be Google Meet. So I just want to tell you just a couple of things before we get into that. So Google Meet is a couple of can be approached a couple of ways. Google Meet is the way that you are going to be able to do video meetings with your team, but you can do this through the free Google Meet or the paid version of Google Meet. And I'll give you the details that you need to know in just a few minutes. But again, today's heavy focus is going to be Google Meet. So if you're thinking, well, why would I need Google Meet? Let's talk about that for a bit. How would you get this ability to host meetings and participate in meetings through Google Meet? Well, the first and most important thing that I tell you in each one of these workshops is that you need to have a Google account. So bear with me as I go through these steps again, because in each workshop, I need to address those of us who do not have a Google account. Many of you do have Google accounts already, but some of you may not. And keep in mind as we go through the steps that these workshops were having a very heavy focus on those who are business owners, small business owners, and those who are considering starting a business. So when you hear me refer to business often, it's because a lot of the focus is on those who have a small business or are very interested in starting a small business. So the tools I share can be used for personal use also, even though the focus is on business. So let's go back to our screen that I'm sharing with you one more time. And once again, I'll share with you that on the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see our favorite 9 dots, that being the Google Apps Launcher. That's the Google Apps Launcher. So if you do not have a Google account, then that's where you would go first. You can see to the right of my arrow, it says sign in. So clearly, if you already had an account, that's what you would do first, is sign in. This slide, you can see that I put the arrow on the image or the icon of account. That just means you're going to the Google account, or you're going to do what? You're going to, as you can see on your screen, create a Google account. And it's just important for me to touch on that for those who may not have a Google account. Now, many of you may or may not have a Gmail address. I will tell you, if you have a Gmail address, then that means you have a Google account. You can also have multiple Google accounts. These accounts are free of cost. So in thinking about the whole concept of business, I would have a separate account that is your Google account for your business. That's just one of the things that I highly recommend, that's what you would do. So again, for today, we're going to take a look at this idea first of signing into your account. And there you see, I have a little graphic on my screen that's showing you the steps of signing into your account. Many of you do this quite often because you use your account frequently. So let's get into the deeper side of this. So communicate from anywhere. Why? Because you're communicating online through your device. You can use a laptop, a tablet, a desktop PC, you can use your smartphone. Now, for some of these things that you're going to want to practice and set up, I highly recommend a larger screen than your smartphone. Okay, that's just preferable because the screen on the smartphone, it tends to be quite small. But you can access it on any device as long, you can go through these steps as long as you have access to internet. That's all you need. Access to internet and a device. Okay, so let's take a look at this Google Meet. So what it does is it allows you to transition from in-person meetings to video meetings with clients, customers, and coworkers. Now, I recognize since we're using Zoom right now to interact on this workshop that a lot of you are using Zoom for your purposes. Now, Google, by using Google Meet, remember previous 3 workshops that we've been talking about this, that once you have this Google account, you have access to all the tools, all those tools in that apps launcher, the 9 dots, that when you select that, it starts to show you all these options you have. In previous workshops, those previous 3 workshops, we worked with Google Docs, we worked with Google Sheets, we talked a lot about accessing the Google Drive. See, all of this is available to you. All those features are available free of cost with the Google account. So that's why we want to go another step further for today and take a look at the Google Meet. The Google Meet. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the fact that now you can actually use Google Meet with the personal free Google account without cost. There are some differences between a cost account, Google account, and the free one that we've been talking about since we got started on these workshops. So right now, I'm still talking about the free of cost Google account. Okay, so this is an opportunity that free of cost, you can now host these video meetings, or like they call them, video calls. But these meetings are now going to be available to you through Google Meet. So let's take a look at that. Okay, now you absolutely will need to be signed in to your Google account to get started if you want to decide to arrange a meeting, arrange a video call meeting, okay? But let's do a little bit more this in more detail, because there are going to also be times when you are invited to a meeting of Google Meet, and as long as you receive that invitation by the individual that organized the meeting or someone in that organization, as long as you have that invitation, you can access the meeting even if you're not in a Google account. But I highly recommend the Google account so that you'll have that covered. And then of course you'll have access to all the many tools we've been talking about. So the first step you were going to do is when you have your handouts and you're practicing all of this, the first step you're going to do is log into your Google account so that you can follow through with all these other steps. Now let's take a look for just a moment at this idea. What is Google Meet? And I want to just remind you that you can always type a question into that Q&A section on your screen if you want to type any questions. And if you have comments as well, that's for questions. But if you had a comment about something, that would be good too. But if a question about something, please feel free to type it in and we'll address those. So here we take a look. I am sharing the screen with you, and it says host and join video meetings from any device. And that's what I talked to you about a little bit earlier. Now, this idea of a free version of Google Meet and a paid version of Google Meet. And that's what we're going to talk about in just a minute. There's some things about Google Meet is that you want to think about the fact that your meetings are secure. And a lot of times if this is with a coworker or a teammate, And I say teammate because this is a small business. You may have coworkers with you. It might just be you and one other person. It might be you and a larger group of people that are part of your small business. Again, this is not restricted to just a business owner. This could be for personal use also, but I'm going to focus on the business because of the fact that we're going to talk a little bit more about the paid version of Google Meet. And the paid version of Google Meet is, if we take a look, here's what we're going to look at. And we're going to look at this carefully and with some detail. So if you're used to using any of the meeting platforms, we happen to be right now using Zoom to share this webinar with you, but any of the platforms, you may be a little bit familiar with these concepts or perhaps not. So that's why I have some of this up on the screen and I'm sharing it with you. So if you see, there's a maximum number of participants in these meetings. Well, if what you're operating with is the free Google Meet with your free Google account, if that's what you're working with, then you can have up to 100 participants in your meeting. And you might think, well, I'll never have that many people in the meeting, so I don't even have to think about purchasing the other version. But I'll give you some little more detail because there's some other factors that you might want to consider here. So the next part is the maximum duration per meeting. Now, making one comparison, for example, if you're looking at the free Zoom account, I believe it's still at approximately maybe 45 minutes long is the maximum of your meeting. Now, with Google Meet, free of cost, you can meet for a full hour. You can meet for a full hour and you can have a maximum of 100 participants. And the free version of the Zoom platform is very limited as far as participants, only a couple of participants. So now we want to look at the next part. It says join from browser and mobile apps. Well, yes, you can do that. You can do that with the free. If you look to your right on the screen, you're going to see where I put business. If you see there where I put business and I highlighted it in red on purpose. The reason I did that is because I wanted you to see the differences between the two. Now, when we say a business, sometimes you can have a small business and it's only 2 people. I've had that before, where there were just 2 of us. And you can have a very, very successful small business with just 2 people. Some small businesses, some entrepreneurs do it all by themselves, but some have less than 10 as far as their total number of people in their small business. Well, once you get past about 10 people, maybe yourself and 9 employees, then you're going to start to see that there's some things that you might want to consider purchasing the business plan for the Google Meet. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. You can see that with the business plan of Google Meet, you can have 150, 250, and then plus higher than that, participants inside of a meeting. And it's kind of excessive here, but it's 300 hours is your limit to the meeting. The most important thing that I see at my first thought is this. With the free Google Meet, you cannot at this time, you cannot record your meeting. And for many of us, recording meetings is essential. Okay, recording meetings is essential for many of us. So that's a big difference right there. There's other differences, but I will tell you that there are going to be many times when you have a business that you're going to want to consider being able to record a meeting so you can refer back to it later. Now, you could always have the free and then upgrade. Okay, but I want to emphasize that because this is part of what many of you would already have been doing with your small business, or you might just be thinking about a small business, interested in doing that, and then you've been writing out your plans, maybe the things you need, the things you don't need, the things you might not have right now in place, but you have a plan, so you might want to consider. Okay, so you might want to consider this being part of your budget. And I will show you more details in a moment, but what we can do is you can see here a little bit of detail. Now, I know there's a lot of information on the screen right now. You're going to have the handout. You're going to be able to go to your Google account. You can always go to workspace.google.com. You will have this on your handout, this information to take a look and see if this is something you want to do. If you look at the screen that I'm sharing with you, you can see that there's the business starter. The business starter. And that one is $6 a month. Now, this is not to encourage you, oh, you need to make a purchase. This is just to let you know that that's available to you and that there's a lot of great features of Google Meet that you already have access to just by the nature of having a free Google account. But once you want to consider recording those meetings and doing some other things with those meetings, then you'll need to go ahead and at least get that business starter for what is currently at $6 a month. Now, there's also the fact that each type of service is going to, as you continue to get a more advanced business Google plan for Google Meet, then of course the cost goes higher, but then what they're going to offer you is higher as well. And the storage, because remember, if you record a meeting, then that recording requires storage space. Up there in the cloud, it's storage space, but it's secure storage space. But as you continue to want more and more storage space for your meetings and that to be available to you, then there's going to be a bit more cost there. But you can get started by having your Google Meet meetings, your online conferences, and maybe just practice with it. It's at your fingertips. It's free of cost as a result of logging into your Google account. And I'm going to share with you in just a minute where you go to set up your meeting within your Google account. But it's important that you know that you could schedule a practice meeting. It could be a colleague if you're not a business owner and there isn't anyone that is related to business, maybe a friend or a family member. You could have them have a practice meeting with you. And this would be a Google Meet so that way you could walk through all the steps, maybe, and see if you're interested and this is a good fit for you. Okay? So you might think, okay, so I'm interested in Google Meet. I'm interested in trying it out, maybe practicing a bit. So there are two ways. There's a couple of ways to access Google Meet. Now, if you look on your screen, you know that I always insert the red arrows and the red boxes and circles just to get your attention as to what I'm going to focus on. Well, I'm going to focus on the fact that we're going to, of the choices that you have to access Google Meet, we're just going to go with going to this particular place using your browser. You're going to go to meet.google.com. Meet.google.com. And what that's going to do is to get you started where you can create a meeting, arrange a meeting, or that's also the place you can go if you want to enter a meeting for which you received an invitation. Okay. So you may just realize that you want to have a conversation. It wasn't planned far in advance. It wasn't anything like that, but you do want to have that conversation. That's part of the meet, collaborate, work remotely element of this whole workshop. So you think, oh, well, we're remote. I need to meet. I didn't really plan it, but let me just make an arrangement so I can meet with this person online and have a conversation. Well, you can do that. And going to meet.google.com, make sure you're signed into your Google account, go to meet.google.com, and then this is what's going to happen. So I do want to remind you that you're free to ask questions along the way. We have plenty of time for questions. If you have any questions about this or comments, you could also type into the Q&A if by chance you are already using Google Meet. If you're already using Google Meet, you can let us know by typing that into the question and answer. But if you have a question about the Google Meet or anything that we're talking about today, you can just let us know in that Q&A section. So now, if you look at the screen that I'm sharing with you, you'll see that I think you can see it all the way at the right-hand corner. You can see that I'm logged in, as I have logged in every time on my using my Grow with Google account. It's a demo account that I'm using, but I always log in so that you can see that that's what needs to happen before you access any of these tools. So on the far upper right-hand corner of the screen, you see that little purple circle with the G in it. That just shows that I am logged into my Google account so that I can access all those tools. So here I am, and I went to my apps launcher and I went into Google. Now, there's so many ways you can access this. This time we typed meet.google.com while we were logged into our account, and that's how we got to our page. So take a look at this page. So it says premium video meetings now free for everyone. So if you look at the text on your screen, it says we re-engineered the service we built for secure business meetings, Google Meet, to make it free and available for all. That was not always available. That's what I mentioned a little bit earlier in the workshop, was that it is now that you can actually have these online video conferences using Google Meet free of cost. Okay, so if you go to meet.google.com, you're logged in. Let's say two different things can happen. What if you want to create a new meeting? Then that's where you would select new meeting. And I highlighted that with a red box. But you might also have an invitation to a meeting. Someone else scheduled the meeting and someone else invited you to that meeting. So they emailed you a code or a link in that invitation that they sent you. So this is where you would enter that code or link so that you could enter the meeting. And in a moment, we're going to look and we're going to see what the screen looks like when you're inside one of these meetings. But again, all along the way, while you're in your account, while you're having all this fun practice and you get your handouts, or even before you get your handouts, if the moment you log off and you're done with this meeting, you want to go in and practice this, just know that all along the way, you can always get help. It's very user-friendly. All these Google tools, as I've been telling you throughout these workshops, these Google tools are very user-friendly. Whenever I come up and I see that I have a doubt about something or something is a little unclear to me, I always do things like, for example, here on your screen, you'll see in a little bit of relatively small text, but it says, learn more about Google Meet. And right there, it's located right beneath the new meeting section there. And if you were to select in your browser, if you were looking at this screen and you were to select the learn more, well, it would take you to a web page where you could learn more. It's gonna guide you. All of these tools have access to help all throughout every page. There's help all throughout every page. So there's so many resources and tools, but there's also the help associated with it. And so far, I have no questions. I don't have any questions from anyone in the audience. I just want to make sure you feel comfortable asking questions. So here we have our screen where we can either create a meeting or enter a code, link, and enter a meeting that we've been invited to. Again, I highly recommend that you practice all of this. You can practice again. It doesn't have to be a real actual meeting, it could just be a sample just to see if you're comfortable with it. But it's an excellent resource free of cost, along with all the other tools that are available to you. Okay. So now, let's say you got the invitation and you had the link or the code as I discussed with you on the previous page. Well, this is what your screen would look like. It would ask you, are you ready to join? Okay. And then it's going to, as you can see here on your screen, it's, I've got the text there telling you that you can click join meeting once you're ready. You know, sometimes these meetings that are remote and that are online are quite common these days. And sometimes we're not quite ready to join the meeting, even though we're on the meeting page. So this is just asking you, if you're ready to join, then you're going to click join meeting. Sometimes you're just not quite ready. But once you're ready to join, you click. And what does that look like? Okay. You can see on the upper right-hand corner at the top of the screen, that's the image of the person's account that is logged in, and they just happen to have a profile photo. So that's what that would look like. Whereas in my sample, I have that little purple with the G in it because that's a demo account and it's G for Grow with Google. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Google Meet features. Let's talk about the fun parts. Now, again, if you've been using any of these meeting platforms, there are some similarities. Just take a look at the screen I'm sharing with you. Take a look. So if by chance you're not familiar with Google Meet at all, but right now you're here in a webinar that's on the Zoom platform, or you have been in meetings on the Zoom platform, because meetings and webinars are quite different. Webinars, the attendees don't actually speak, they view only. But here in this Google Meet controls, take a look at your screen. At the very top right-hand corner, you see where it is highlighting the fact that you can chat. Okay, so it also has chat feature in Google Meet. At the bottom center of the screen, it has some of the other controls, including the audio, and also in Google Meet, you can also share your screen. And we're going to look at that in just a moment. But look at the controls that have been circled at the center of your screen. So on the left, you have microphone, which is like your audio, but all the way to the right is camera. These are some of the things we're going to talk about in a minute, because there are some aspects of meetings that are pretty important so that you can actually have not only a successful meeting, but I like to call it kind of putting your best foot forward if it's a business meeting. Perhaps if this is your own small business and maybe you're meeting with a colleague, you really do want to put your best foot forward with that. Okay, so if you're looking at the screen, this is very much what it would look like. Each camera visible, right? Okay, so take a look at the screen I'm sharing with you now. It's a little bit different because I have highlighted where the bottom right hand of the corner of the screen, it says present now. In a lot of other platforms like Zoom, it's called share. Here it's called present. Present, same idea, same concept. So here you can either present, you're presenting it to everyone else in the meeting. They can see it because literally you are sharing. You're sharing your screen with them. You can share your screen, you can share a window, or you can share a Chrome tab. And that would be Google Chrome, and they're talking about your browser. So one of your browser tabs, so that's what you would be sharing with others in your meeting. Now, again, this is where I really recommend practicing, just a sample meeting. These are free of cost if you're using the free plan. They're free of cost, so you can just practice, set up a meeting and practice. Then you can practice these features. Practice a little bit presenting now, like it says on the list here on your screen, on the lower right-hand side of your screen where it says present now. Practice doing that. Practice presenting or sharing your entire screen, your window. You want to kind of prepare for your meeting, and this is the way that you can prepare for your meeting, by just having a sample practice meeting. Okay, so this is a good thing to do with just, again, anyone that wants to participate with you and practice. So a lot of times people will join this kind of meeting, they can join from their smartphone. There are some features sometimes with these workshops that I recommend a larger screen, but for these meetings, many people will just use their smartphone to enter these meetings, and that is fine. All they need is that device. In this case, they could have a smartphone and access the internet. That's all they're going to need. Now, you would need to invite them to the meeting, right? When you set up your meeting earlier on the screens, when I shared with you that you could start and create your own meeting, then of course that's how they would know that they were invited, is you're going to invite them to your meeting. Okay. And so far, I do not have any questions. Okay. So the next part that I want you to see is there's going to be times when, if it's on the business plan and you're the one that arranged and organized the meeting, it's going to let you know that you're recording. Okay, so typically there will be usually it's red, and it'll show that the meeting is recording. So here is where you would select. I'm sharing this on the screen with you. This is where you would select, and it's showing you recording meeting. Okay, and you could just take a look at some of these settings on your own when you practice. Okay, maybe there's some things that you really want to use that we're not going to cover in today's workshop. Like I said, there's so many aspects to Google Meet, so many, that I encourage you to practice using them on that practice meeting. So again, there are some things that are really important with these meetings. And you can have a very relaxed meeting if it's just for personal use. But really, today's focus would be more for using it for business or something that you would really, again, want to put your best foot forward. So take a look at the screen as to what best practices are. Now, it could be that you are not the host. You did not organize the meeting. It's not yours. It's not business related, or it is, but you're not the organizer. You were invited. These things still matter as far as best practices. So let's take a look. Keep your camera on if it's a meeting. Unless there's an absolute reason not to have the camera on, if you are engaging back and forth and the meeting is one where you need to connect and engage with each other, then you need to have that camera on. And just prepare yourself for to know that people are going to see you. Are you ready? That's why when we said about selecting join meeting, were you ready to join the meeting? The other thing is having a relatively neutral background. Now, you can't always make everything perfectly neutral behind you, but for the most part, not have like maybe television playing behind you and news running, all these things happening, people running back and forth. If it's a meeting, the colors of the background and what's happening in the background, remember, can have an effect on how well that meeting plays out. Okay, so sometimes if you can have an external microphone. Like today I'm using an internal microphone, but I also have an external one. So you might want to see if an external microphone is a better fit for you. That's again with the practice. That's something that I recommend with the practice meeting that you're going to have. When you're not speaking in the meeting, sometimes we're in an environment that's very, very quiet, and not leaving ourselves muted or leaving ourselves muted doesn't matter that much because it's just perfectly silent around us. But a lot of times there's noise and disruption. So, or just we're going to be rustling papers and moving books around while we get ourselves organized. That's why a lot of times it's best to have your microphone muted in a meeting. One other very important thing, particularly if you're hosting a meeting, especially, and I highlight this, especially if your meeting is going to be recorded, video recorded. Again, that's with the paid plan, but that paid plan as of yet can be as low as $6 a month. But if you actually want to have these recordings, it's important that you wear solid colors, solid color clothing. Avoid stripes and bunches of flowers and dots and streaks. those are very, very nice patterns in clothing. But when it comes to the camera, when it comes to a recording on video, the solid colors are best. And that's why, or maybe two solid colors. But the idea of the stripes and speckles and glittery things hanging for a regular meeting, again, this wouldn't be some kind of performing type of thing. This is a meeting. So that meeting, and also whether it's recorded or not, try to keep that in mind, that if there's too many designs and such, it's just that the patterns can be visually distracting. Okay. And again, we're talking about collaborating from anywhere. I have a slide that's up on the screen right now that's showing, it's showing Google Drive, but then it's showing just only some of the tools. Previously this month in our workshops, we did Google Sheets, we did Google Docs. We worked last week's workshop, we worked with Calendar and Gmail, and calendars within Gmail. We're often using the Chrome browser to access our Google account. And we haven't covered in workshops the slides and photos, but again, there's so many other features of tools. So this is just a little bit of that, kind of just to highlight the fact that all these tools are free of cost. Now, just one little note is that if you do have the Google Workspace, okay, the Google Workspace, which was regularly being called G Suite, Google Suite, if you had that, your visual on your Google Meet might look a little bit different. You might have a little bit of a different look, but nothing too terribly significant as far as the way your screen looks when you're in one of those meetings. It's very, very similar. Okay, and this is just a little reminder because in the previous workshops we've used, I've shown you how we access, and earlier today, how we access the Google Apps Launcher, the little 9 dots, and how that is where you have all these tools, and it includes Google Drive. Now, Google Drive maintains all your files, but there is something I want to touch on today that's pretty important and pretty useful to know. And that's why for today, even though we are actually not going to get deep into Google Docs because we've already done that, or Google Sheets, we did that in the earlier workshop, we are indeed going to take a look at some aspects of files in Google Drive. Okay, so here we've done this in a previous workshop, and remember, everyone received the email with the links to the recordings, to those 3 previous recordings on the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. So if I reference a previous workshop, everyone's going to be able to now go back and view those workshops because I've sent you the email with the links, and you also know that they're now posted on the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. Okay? So now I'm sharing my screen. If you take a look, this is just Google Drive. Of course, I'm always logged in. You see at the upper right-hand corner, the little purple circle with the G. That means that my little demo account, Grow with Google, I am logged into that account. So we've been talking about Google Drive in our previous workshops and a little bit about it today. It is a place for all of your files. Okay, so this is one of the multiple features that you have access to within all those Google tools. And it's important to start to see all these tools because this is so much more than a search engine. So when you're thinking Google, everybody thinks, oh, okay, well, Google that person's name and use the search engine. But there's so much more. And that's what these workshops have been about. Basically, as they say, the tip of the iceberg is what this is. This is only just some information about the many, many tools and all the many things you can do free of cost with these Google tools, as long as you are in your Google account. So here, we're taking a look at what it looks like when we're in our account, and I'm looking at my drive. And something that I mentioned in a previous workshop is if you didn't have anything saved, you don't have any files, then your drive is empty, right? However, in a previous workshop, and you can also now watch the recording, I did create some files. I created a team meeting. It was like a team meeting file. And what it was is it was Google Docs. Okay, it was in Google Docs. And now guess what? I see my file. So some of you, if you've been using Google Drive for a long time, you may have many, many files that come up when you look at your version. You look at your screen in My Drive, there may be many, many, many files. In this case, mine is a demo account, so I only have this one file, but it is indeed displayed there, okay? So there's a lot on my screen now. Remember, you can still ask questions along the way. So take a look at the screen now. I have a lot of things showing. What's happening is this. I told you I was going to mention something important that we didn't cover in the other workshops when we were doing the Google Docs. Here, I want you to know that you can have a file that you created. You can always work with that file even if you are offline, even if you are not connected to the internet at all. You just have your device, no internet connection. So let's say I have this team meeting file. Okay, there's my sample on the screen. Okay, I made this in one of our workshops previous this month while we were together. It's in one of the recordings. Now I'm looking at this file, but what I need to do, if I know that I want to perhaps work with my files, but I will not have internet access, it is very important that I take this one step, and that's why I devoted this whole screen to it. I need to open my file while I'm connected to internet. I open my file and I go to File and I select Make Available Offline. Make Available Offline. And you can see that on your screen. It's when you're looking at the selections, it's kind of halfway down the center. It has new, open, make a copy, email, download, make available offline. I must activate that. Then at a future time, when I need it and I have no internet, then I can go in and access and edit it. But that's why you'll have this in your handout. But just make sure that you're aware that you must be online, open your file, make it available offline, and then you can close it if you need to and work on something else. But unless this is activated, you will not be able to access it offline. But it's a very nice option because many times we have files we want to work on and we're editing that file and we're making changes to it, but it's okay if it's not on the internet, online. It's not live. What's happening is the only way it's live is the fact that I am working with my file and I am really editing it, and it's going to be saved safely on my drive. Okay. So here's another aspect of all of this as we start to come to a close to our workshop today. One of the aspects is you can download, you can use and bring in other file formats. You can use Word files, you can use PDF files. Those are portable document format is what it is, but it's really very, very, very common. And across platforms and such, the PDF file is extremely user-friendly in the sense that if you send someone a file in Word format, they may or may not be able to open it. There are many people who do have access to Word documents and Word application and the Microsoft Word, but some people won't be able to access your file. So a lot of people will say, okay, please send it to me in PDF format. Well, you can work with these other formats and then have them saved on your My Drive, your Google Drive. So it's important that you know that. So we are at the close of our workshop today. Please type in any question that you may have. We didn't have any questions today, so please type in any question you may have as I am finishing this up. So remember that, keep in mind that you will receive the handout for today's workshop, this Collaborate, Meet, and Work Remotely, and you have received the previous handouts. And now, as of today, you have the previous 3 workshops accessible to you as recordings on the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel, for which I included the direct links inside of that email I sent today. And that email would be from luce.early@fortworthtexas.gov. So that's the sender email that I sent today to all of you that registered. So every email address that registered, okay, every email address, that specific email address is where I sent that file. And you'll have a copy of today's handout. And the handout is really just all the different slides that I've shared with you on the screen. And those handouts then give you the opportunity to practice with it. It's important for me to say, I know we didn't have any typed in questions today, but I really want to thank my colleague Alexis Carter for being there waiting for those questions just to make sure that we address them if needed. And I so appreciate her support. And also, please be sure that when you finish this workshop, that you go ahead, thank you, Alexis, that you go ahead and you should see the survey pop up. It's an evaluation is what it is. And please fill that out so we can have your feedback. Very important that you keep up with all the social media sites for Fort Worth Public Library, be it Facebook and Twitter and these different Instagrams, these different accounts, but also the Fort Worth Public Library website, and namely the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel that you now have those 3 recording link access to, and there are other recordings of very useful information. Just kind of stay up to date. That survey that you fill out, that evaluation, not only helps with this particular workshop. This has been a series of 4 workshops, okay? And that your feedback on that evaluation is very useful, not just for this workshop, it's useful when it comes to all the adult programs that Fort Worth Public Library offers. And we have been trying to build on those programs and expand. So again, your input is essential. Your input is essential. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate my colleague Alexis. And I hope that everyone has a great day, a great rest of the day, but also keep an eye out on in your inbox, in your email, the email you use to register, because you will receive an email from me, luce.early@fortworthtexas.gov. You will receive an email that will have attached to it the handouts for today's workshop, and also soon enough there will be posted this recording also, along with the other 3 that you already have access to now on the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. So thank you, everyone, and I would hope that you have an absolutely glorious afternoon. And we'll see you next time. Bye now.